And we put our money and work hard in real activities to maximize our labor income, not worrying about our investment income. What it turns out is that when these ninja loans were priced and sold to the market, these were done with rosy, very rosy assumptions. Like housing market is going to go up for 10%, they're not good, housing prices are not going to go down, all the demand for housing will go up, only up, up, and up. So this kind of rosy, there will be very little default, these guys will work hard and generate the income to pay for their loans. Somehow under these rosy assumptions, all these loans, these high-risk loans, which are also high return, but these high-risk loans were magically rated as A, good quality loan. So when this problem started with Bear Stearns type of company, investors started questioning how come these high-risk loans were rated as A. And then they started thinking that, oh my God, these guys might be doing something that is, not financially ethical, because this, or financial, or maybe a mass scale something wrong of evaluating this risk. Otherwise, how come these low risk, these high risk, low credit worthy loans can be termed as A? That caused a massive depletion of investors' confidence in these kinds of financial institutions, and as a consequence, withdrawal of money. At the same time, if we remember the Enron experience, what happened in the Enron experience was that Arthur Andersen laxed on reevaluating the assets of Enron, which was identified as the primary reason for the failure of Enron in later days. They did not revalue the assets to the market, called mark to market. So as a consequence, this other investment, the other audit firms who existed after Enron, after the debacle of Arthur Andersen, were very strict about this time about marking it to market or revaluating the assets. So they forced these big banking clients to write down their assets to the right values, what it is selling for in the secondary market, and as a consequence, there was a sudden spurt in write-offs. These banks has to write off assets because it's a $1 asset I bought for, but right now in the secondary market it's selling for 70 cents, so I have to write down my assets in terms of 70 cents a dollar, which created a $30 write-off. So as a reason, what happened was there was a sudden meltdown. We saw what is called a clustering of meltdown because these write-offs came pretty much all together. Yes. Yeah. I mean, my understanding is that all these factors, as Professor Singh and Lillian has said already and others are going to say, are all together kind of created this V-shading environment. It is absolutely a very serious event. My suggestions to the investors is rethink the strategy, but don't panic and withdraw money. Because if you panic and withdraw money, you just expedite the process. You just make a good financial institution even go down, and as a consequence, make the problem even bigger. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for coming. Since only 5 minutes, so I go straight right to the point. As a previous speaker has said, the market had dropped for a very good reason. And the question is whether the steep drop we've seen so far is justified by the fundamental. And if you have done a price earning analysis, it suggests it's not. So this is consistent with what Professor Singh just said. Okay, right now, the market seems to be mostly driven by fear rather than by logic. So what I would like to talk about today is in such kind of environment and crisis, okay, how small investors should protect themselves and what kind of a regulation the government should put into place to help protect them. So if you are near retirement or you have a very short investment horizon, and it may make sense for you to cash out some position now, just to be safe. However, if you are a long-term investor, and if you plan to freeing the market for the comfort and safety, might not be such a good idea because it may do a serious damage to your long-term finances. Because if you get out of the market now, unless you have decided you quit the market for good, and you have to decide the time to get back in again. And this implicitly assumes you have a good timing ability, know the right moment to get out and get in. But trust me, not many investors have such kind of ability. If you do, you would already be out of the market at least a few months ago, right? So since the market the drop has been so steep, and the rebound, if there's any, is likely to be large and quick. And this will happen when the fear I just talked about dissipate. And there's a professor from University of Michigan found that this market gain are very concentrated in only a few days, and if you miss it, then you're going to have a low return. Okay, he found that less than 1% of the trading day would account for 90% of market gains. And there's a similar evidence from other institutions, from other countries too. An article recently published in Journal Investing that looked at the equity market across 15 countries, and the author found that for investors who missed out the 10 best days during the several decades, then his wealth will be only half of a person who has set a tie throughout the market, throughout the crisis. So this suggests if you don't have good timing ability, and you might not want to make a very rash decision by getting out of the market and by freeing the market for now. So I talk about it's a good idea not to protect yourself, not making rash decisions, but small investors also need some protection from the government because they are often asked or coaxed into investing into something they don't quite understand. And in terms of the price they have to pay or the risk involved. Of course, I'm talking about the structured products. Okay? A structured product is generally a prepackaged investment strategy which is based on the derivatives. And this could be quite risky because of high leverage involved. The now notorious mini bonds issued by the Lehman Brothers is an example of the structured products. And Lehman has sold about $2 billion in Hong Kong, of such kind of bonds, and about 200 million, in Singapore. And this is very risky because the performance of mini bonds are typically linked to the default risk of some reference entities. Okay, and just to give you an example how risky this bond is, suppose you invest $100,000 directly into bond issued by some reference entity which mini bonds are linked to. Okay, so say it's Goldman Sachs, and suppose you invest $100,000 directly into the bond issued by Goldman Sachs, and further suppose this bond default, and you're going to lose $80,000. Okay. However, if you invest $100,000 in this bond, you would lose $80,000 for about 6 banks whenever any of these 6 banks are default. And so in this sense, the mini bond is 6 times riskier than just investing in the bond issued by the financial institution.